In this episode of the WellAware podcast, I'm delighted to bring you Jayson Mamaclay of ThinkQuick events. Come learn everything there is to know about online virtual escape rooms and how they can help you and your team be more productive by getting into the very nature of how your team cooperates and collaborates together. Hello, everyone. I am here with Jayson Mamaclay of ThinkQuick events. My name is Conrad Ruiz. I'm the founder of WellAware, and welcome to the WellAware podcast. Jayson, I'm
Thank you
really
so
excited to
much.
have this conversation today. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. My pleasure, Conrad.
Yeah. So Jayson, I want to set the tone for our conversation today because I think what we're looking to have a discussion on at this point is we're looking to discuss what your business is about, which is in this case it is a service that is directly meant to provide teams with an experience that engages them in getting to better understand how they operate, how they work together, all in a very playful and entertaining way. Now, that could sound like a lot of different types of services, but what ThinkQuick Events specifically does is you provide, as the name suggests, these escape room style type of engagements, which in our particular realm, like what you and I are going to be experiencing through WellAware's process of going through your company's service offerings, we're actually going to be having a demonstration that's going to be digital in nature.
hmm
But I understand that you guys have also had experiences in the physical capacity as well. So welcome. I'm really excited to
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in that we deliver both in-person physical experiences as well as digital experience as well. And many of us during the pandemic had the direct experience of needing to figure out how to pivot, how to innovate, and how to continue doing services in that remote and distant world. So really was excited to be able to innovate in that direction.
Jason, when you first brought up this business to me, my most immediate pressing moment, as soon as you mentioned the digital component especially, I went back to my childhood. I went back to playing Flash games online, and I specifically recall playing like these quick escape rooms, right? And I
hmm
can distinctly remember that as a kid, obviously these were solo event games. I wasn't playing with anybody per se, but I totally remember going onto YouTube way back when and, kind of getting help occasionally to figure out what I was doing. I can also distinctly remember that some of these games were trickier than most, but at the end of the day, that was like my first thought process when I came to understanding what exactly it is that you do. Tell me more about how Think Quick Events came into being. Like, where did you get this idea?
Yeah, well, I share in that joy and that childhood experience for sure. I'm definitely a lover of video games, computer games, but really games of all kinds, board games, card games, and escape room really kind of fit the mold as well. Escape rooms came into the United States around, I mean, there are varying historical reports, but let's say around 2014, 2015 or so. And they essentially were in person tangible analog versions of these very games that we would play online or on our video game consoles. And really, what did transcend what usually was a solo experience or just simply interacting with the screen suddenly became a collaborative opportunity for people to actually be in the environment, in the scene, saving the day together, being the heroes on the screen, but instead here in real life. So the actual origins of the business stem back to 2017, pre-pandemic, with an actual physical escape room where we did both transportable escape room experiences, traveling to different locations and facilitating these entertainment and team building activities, as well as opening up a brick and mortar store local to the Chicagoland area where we hosted families and community members and local companies for their entertainment and team building experiences inside a more traditional brick and mortar environment. When the pandemic came around, that's when, well, everything changed for us, and we needed to figure out, well, what are we going to do with our business? It had experienced some really great success, was on a wonderful upward trajectory, and then everything got derailed from there. But unfettered from, well, maybe not unfettered. We were definitely really stressed out at the time. But trying to figure out a way to be able to evolve and innovate, we had started seeing some players in the escape room industry like try out different digitized versions or digital versions that brought the experience online and remote. And so we elected to also be in that pool of innovators of sorts. And so what we did was we took 360 camera views of our actual physical game experiences in the store, worked with a platform that was just starting up within the escape room industry that allowed for kind of more of those kinds of point and click style adventures, and actually uploaded our games to this digital interface where now people can come in from all around the world and actually enter our spaces, the actual rooms themselves, zooming in on the actual props that we actually had inside the games, solving the very puzzles that they would need to solve had they been in the actual space itself. And what was really wonderful about this platform, especially as it evolved also along the way as the pandemic came along and escape room owners collaborated in figuring out what are important tools that we need to have to make for a more seamless and positive player experience. We were able to create our games in this digital platform where people all around the country and all around the world would be able to participate in this connecting experience during a time of significant and severe separation. We've held on to the games since then and also brought back our in-person experiences traveling around the country since restrictions related to the pandemic have eased. And we're really glad to now have that other arm of a revenue stream to still continue to be able to connect people that otherwise wouldn't be able to be connected.
Jason, I can't wait to play this. I want to say that you've given me a sense of visualization as to like what there is to expect that I'm like, oh my God, I want to play right now. That being said, I'm very much taking this giddiness from a very personal context, and I recognize that what you're designing from an experience standpoint is really meant to be built toward a professional value. And I want to talk a little bit more about that because I think in your case, what you're describing is yes, there is so much to be said about the interconnectedness that I think a lot of us are missing when it comes to working together or interacting together online. And granted, games have been a really fantastic way since pre-pandemic in which we've done just that.
Yeah.
Work is not without its triumphs and temptations in that same regard. But it certainly provides a different context around why people are getting interacted or why people are interacting together. And so I think to your perspective, to your point, putting on this more entertaining perspective of it, while still envisioning what it is to, really enjoy working with someone in a type of problem solving capacity, there are parallels that I can imagine you try to help draw. I think this is probably part of your conversation pitch with someone who says, "Oh, this sounds lovely. How is this going to apply to helping me in a professional setting, or how is it going to apply to my team in a professional setting?" What has been your case and context around how ThinkQuick Events supports professional teams with their own team workplace dynamics?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're 100% correct that we can never discard the fact that, yes, this is entertainment at its heart. This is game and play at its heart. And it is wonderful when there could be an intersection of that fun experience with being able to practice and recognize behaviors, patterns, and activities that actually can translate back into other settings like a professional setting. So some really clear gimmies right off the bat: time management. These games are timed, and so you have to make sure that you're working at a pace that feels like you'll be successful at achieving your goal before the time runs out. Communication. This is naturally a collaborative experience, and as people are discovering things or finding tools or figuring out different types of pieces of information that may be helpful for others, communication is so dramatically important. Leadership naturally comes up, and so all the different styles and ways that leadership can show up, from the sense of being able to identify whose skills are good where and when, being able to celebrate successes along the way, being able to keep up morale if for some reason people are stuck and needing that extra push to say no, let's keep on going. And then also thinking about how to manage across different generations, different levels, different titles, where the escape room provides a sandbox to practice problem solving in a way that transcends what rank you are within an organization. There are a whole variety of ways that an escape room can have those translatable components that could be pulled back into the workplace.
And in kind, I want to highlight that we've already spoken with one of your team members, Leon, and
Yeah.
we're actually looking to prepare WellAware itself, our team, with a demonstration of your guys' services and how this particular experience works. So we're really excited. I believe our goal is to kind of have a post-game conversation that's going to
I
kind
love
of
that.
be very much similar to this, where we'll kind of get into like, so how did it go? And hear all the things that we experienced. And I'll try my best to kind of speak on behalf of the team and kind of gather what their ultimate takeaways were, because I imagine it'll be a little bit more challenging to bring them all on board to say like, hey, what do the 10 of you think? That might make for a totally different type of episode that I am not yet prepared for. But needless to say, Jason, I do imagine, and this is sort of one of the sort of the well-aware things that I would like to do on this call with you is I would like to know, like almost like a speculative buyer. What
Mm,
are the expectations I'm going to want to have? What are some of the common questions I'm going to want to go through? And in fact, I know we sat down a little bit beforehand to talk about some of the things that I think get brought up in conversation with people who want to explore working with you. And I just want to
mhm.
ask those questions right here and see if we can kind of help get some FAQ out of the door. Um,
Yeah.
could you share some examples of some of the puzzles or challenges that specifically require effective time management to solve?
Ooh, well, I think the escape room in as a whole itself is one giant puzzle that weaves a lot of puzzles together. So that alone, the actual experience is time management in and of itself. Another example of potential time management uh, qualities are that escape rooms, for the most part, may have what are called linear puzzle structures, where it's one puzzle after another, or parallel puzzle structures, where different puzzles can be solved on at the same time. And that's where this concept of divide and conquer needs to come into play as an important time management strategy so that you can cover more ground, get more done, so that it's not something that we see in the physical space, everyone huddling over one puzzle, and it's realistically just one person doing the puzzle, or maybe a couple of people collaborating, and the others just simply watching by. So an important time management component is if you don't feel like you're actively contributing towards the solution of a puzzle, can you and others that feel in the same position find opportunities to go searching elsewhere for something else that needs to be solved?
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I want to say that since we've talked about games in the past and time management, one of the things that kind of comes to mind, which is a bit of a more modern day experience to gaming, at least in terms of its popularity, but I imagine in your world of escape room events, you've also seen your witness of professional escape roomists, if you will, people who sort of treat the game like a speed run. And for those that know, in the video game world, speed running is this objective of doing something as fast as literally possible, to the extent of, of producing world record attempts at completing was effectively of workflow, right? That's
Hmm.
namely designed around entertainment, but nonetheless, I think those implications have such an array of parallel to the same principle that I think everyone would love to have at the end of each day of their work, which is, can I get the stuff that I need to get done today as fast as humanly possible with respect to the degree of quality that is expected,
Of
so
course.
that I can go home. Ironically, that is kind of the escape room that we're all living through each day.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
yeah, yeah, way to throw some philosophy in there. Um, but I do want to ask because part of what you're also bringing up in that respect is, and I mean, again, I one of the sort of paradoxes of speedrunning is it's a solo venture, whereas in this conversation, we're really talking more about a team dynamic. I've actually
Hmm.
one thing I've never really thought about before is like, is there such thing as a cooperative based speedrun, or are there cooperative based speedrun games out there? I think escape rooms are kind of one of those examples, but you're bringing up some really interesting, almost like how a team operates kind of structure. You're talking about communication management practices, the ability to organize channels of communication such that when Group A, if within a team you have several groups, if Group A is able to start solving, puzzle one, well then Group B is going to start looking for puzzle two. But then there's still some sort of broader communication channel system where both parties are saying, hey, here's where each of us are at, and I can imagine this number expands ad infinitum. Um, do you how does that sort of portray itself when you're sort of watching people interact inside of your escape room designs?
Yeah, definitely. Well, before I answer that question, it's funny. I do feel compelled to bring up that I actually volunteer with some speedrunning communities, actually, where we as groups of individuals often raise tens, if not hundreds, if not millions of dollars for charity each year, depending on the different organization and the event. And I can say with confidence there are some cooperative speedruns that are out there, and of different varieties. Sometimes it's a relay where it is just one person still trying to execute something and then someone else steps in to try to execute the same thing, in which case group learning of strategy and tactics comes into play as they observe the task being done over and over again, or with varying degrees of success, failure, and progress. Another aspect could be literally it's a search and discover type of cooperative speed run where, very much like an escape room, you're trying to cover as much ground as possible to be able to figure out as much information as possible so you go down the path that you need to go to get to your final objective. Another one, quite literally, maybe it's not true cooperative speedrun, but there could be two people sharing one controller, which makes for a very interesting speedrun experience where you literally can only control half of what's going on. And kind of like in an escape room, you may have access to certain tools, information, or maybe even physically be separated, where literally you only have a portion of the information or a portion of the capability to be able to solve a puzzle. That latter example is more for established brick and mortar locations rather than necessarily one of our digital or transportable escape rooms. But I did just need to bring that up, that this actually is an intersection that's very relevant and near and dear to me too. Um, but to go back to how these groups have this kind of interconnectedness as they both work on their individual tasks and need to communicate with each other what their progress is. A really great example within an escape room is if it's very clear that people need to collect enough of a thing. Maybe it's puzzle pieces where it's clear it's part of a larger, broader item. Maybe it is like things that need to be, well, I guess, assembled in a non-puzzle way. Maybe it's items that need to, like, you need to arrive at a certain number of them where it's clear that a count is really important. So as puzzles get solved and may reveal these pieces, these tokens that need to be counted or something like that, being able to communicate between the groups saying, hey, I found more of X, and now let's go ahead and pool these things together, assess, do we have enough? If the answer is no, we need to go out and find more puzzles that are likely to also hold these particular items. So kind of like trying to find specific pieces of data for a particular project. Maybe you're trying to do some market research and trying to collect information on different geographies. That, for example, is a very clear translation of, okay, we need to perform this set of tasks in this area to get a piece of information that's relevant for the broader puzzle or broader objective of the entire project. And different groups can be tackling those things, learning what are techniques that work in one area that may be relevant in another. So sharing of skill sets, knowledge, and learned techniques and behaviors. And then the celebration of we've got it, we've got the information that we need. Where do we need to be deployed next if we need more of that type of information?
I'm sensing huge conversations around initiative, which I
Ooh.
believe every manager slash executive wants to see in their team. I believe I think touching upon the importance of definition of done is so critical, even within that initiative. Like, do you have the initiative as a team to recognize what your definition of done is, especially given how much information you've been provided with? Like, again, I think to your point, to help make the escape room, uh, achievable and executable. And I think there's so much to be said about how this should be understood in real life as well when it comes to actual work. But without a very clear definition of done, especially where the pieces themselves are supposed to help you identify that there is one, a piece of an entire puzzle going on here, but then two, once you've identified all the pieces, then you can kind of take a look and go, okay, as I put these together, they should form a complete picture.
Hmm.
Obviously, the real world of work can sometimes be challenging in that respect. Data may not be perfect, and we sort of have to fight the definition of perfect as opposed to getting to that definition of done.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to highlight that that's an incredibly insightful thing that I'd like to sort of put in the back of my brain for just a moment. But
Yeah.
with that being said, Jason, and not to be too tongue in cheek about where our own time sits in today, but what what does the Think Quick Escape experience um, what does it ultimately do to define the deadline of done? And how do you know that people feel like they have enough time to do this? I feel like this is such an issue at work as well, where, we want to define what there is to be done, but we also want to say, hey, we have to get this done by a certain amount of time. How do you create that experience and write the parallels for that in your business?
Well, so in the experience, the definition of time limit is defined by the clock. The timed experience. Most escape rooms have a traditional time limit of 60 minutes. There are others that are out there that are 90 minutes, some that are 40 minutes. But while the time may vary, it is agreed that the game experience is a finite period of time. So win or lose, there's that. And so everyone kind of agrees, all right, we're gonna terminate at this point in time. Definitely understood that in the pursuit of being able to achieve something, often there could be a moving goalpost to what done is. But the importance of setting a deadline to say, this is where we're going to cut this off and move on, either from the experience or move on to the next phase, is an important thing for a group within a business to agree on. Additionally, um, when when within an escape room itself and puzzles get completed, a behavior that I see often, more so in the physical space, but sometimes a little bit in this digital environment too, is that people will be tempted to go back to puzzles that have already been completed to see, is there something else that I need? Luckily enough, in the digital interface, we've done enough to try to remove that element of human behavior to kind of regress to prior phases by like making it physically well, not physically, digitally impossible to click back into those spaces so that we cue the player experience to the things that they need to look at. But certainly in the physical realm, we can't control where different pieces end up being placed down, and if a person errantly would just pick something up again and go, did we do something with this already? And that's where, again, clear communication and an agreement of where done things go so that people don't stumble onto this aspect of coming back to things that have already been completed, is an important element of team dynamics. And then the last component of, hey, what does done look like, or this aspect of getting to done that I think is important in any team building experience in general, but escape rooms specifically, is this element that there are mechanisms to be able to ask for help, assistance, or support in some way, whether it's directly from the person that's facilitating the game to ask for a clue. In our digital experiences, we've automated how to be able to deliver some of our more common clues, as well as automated to say, like, you don't need this clue anymore. You only need this set of clues based on what you have available. Knowing when to ask for help and support if you do feel like you're stuck is another component of going, all right, I'm done trying to figure it out on my own. I know and recognize that I need to ask for help and support from somebody outside the context of this immediate work group for an outside perspective or the little piece of potential knowledge to get me the rest of the way so that I could get that momentum going back for myself again.
I want to again just draw on how so much of that parallels with real life task management and project management and assignment, and knowing that when you give a team responsibilities and when a team hands out the responsibilities in kind as they so do to other individuals on said team, how important that sort of meta structure behind how the project is being overseen, such that if anyone needs help, if anyone needs to sort of, be guided to their wellness on, hey, don't backtrack super hard. This thing has already been complete. We already have everything that we need from here. We can sort of put that on the shelf and and start and continue to move forward with the next set of tasks that are ahead of us. I just feel like all of that is just so important to understand, and I can't wait to kind of watch it in real time on the more entertaining side of things. But again, we live in a business world where I literally just have to open up my task management system and go, how is this thing set up so that I have these exact implementations in place so that my team can do everything that they need to get done? Because it's just, again, it's just something that you don't talk about in the nature of your work. This is almost like on the job meta as opposed to in the job meta. Now,
Ooh, yeah.
with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the in the job meta behind the escape room, if you will.
Yeah.
Jason, what should be what have you seen? Like, and maybe I shouldn't ask these questions, but hey, if I'm gonna figure out how to do something right, I might as well ask an expert, right? So, what do good teams do as a participants in order to basically coordinate themselves and work together as a team successfully? What are some common team dynamics or strategies that you find amongst the successful groups or the most successful groups?
Sure. I mean, there's always a variety of ways to be able to tackle truly a game experience like this. But some of the things that come up for me are that there's a willingness to explore. Sometimes people will feel like, all right, we need to wait for the most senior person to move in order for all of us to go and follow. And inside an escape room experience, I alluded to this and a lot of what I'm about to say in different phrases earlier, but this is a team experience that transcends title, and everyone's welcome to come to the table and discover at the same level and at the same level of capability different things that they're there to explore. So the opportunity to get started right away and to start digging into the content that's in front of you is something that everyone should embrace right away. Our particular experience allows you to be able to see where your fellow players' cursors are in the game. There's no VR avatars, there's no need for heavy equipment, it's just something that's based in the browser. So it makes it for a very accessible experience regardless of your various systems' technical capabilities. No special equipment required. But because you're able to see where each other's cursors are, it's kind of like knowing where in the room your fellow players are. So something else that could be helpful is if you have a large enough team where people maybe can pair up and agree on, well, where is it that this group is going to be searching and collecting information and agreeing on what it is that they're finding. That way, there's a lower likelihood that just one person has what they saw in their brains, and may have forgotten to announce it over to the team. So that's another component is having having another individual with you to discover what you're discovering with you, so that there's more than one perspective and more than one mind or mouth to be able to communicate out what you're seeing. Um, Being able to shout out, "Hey, I need X," to the rest of the team. Now, because we're in the digital experience, we're all on a singular voice call. There's no concern of needing to yell down the hall, be like, "Hey, have you found?" Like, you're able to do that straight away, without needing to battle with the physical mechanics of space. But just simply saying, "Hey, if you find puzzle pieces, I'm looking for puzzle pieces. If you find things that are blue, I need the things that are blue. Or, like, I need to know that if we found new things of that. Or, like, I need someone to, like, stand here and tell me if anything changes when I do this thing." That kind of stuff. So being able to communicate what it is that you need or hypothesis that you have about what you feel like you need is important, so that people are tuned in to be able to provide that support, and shout out when something of that has been found. And that allows not just one person to be participating, but for everyone to be participating in this hunt and discovery for common items that need to be found. And then the last thing that I have is just also be communicative about about what it is that you're finding. Sometimes a piece of information may not have a lot of relevance for you and what you've been focusing on, but that sometimes may be exactly the piece of information that someone else needs in order for them to be able to progress their puzzle and their experience. And you could either join in that experience by going, oh, okay, let me go over to you and see what it is that you're seeing. Or you could just simply say, hey, this is here, and now I need to move on to something else, but now you have the information that's there. There will be several times where one person has to be in one place and another person has to be in a different place, and it's very efficient for those two people to be actively communicating with each other rather than one person bouncing back and forth between the two places inside the experience. And that's where the communication comes into play. So one person might be seeing information that needs to be translated, for example, and another person may be seeing a translator. Well, one solution could be the one person looks at the thing that gets translated, run to the translator, look at the translator to translate the thing, come back and get the next thing that needs to be translated. Or the two people can be verbally talking about what needs to be translated. So that's another thing that I do bring up there for successful teams.
A bit of a meta awareness for you on this. I have a cat that seems to be hopping in and out of complaints, and so part of my distraction has been for the audience's awareness that I've been kind of again catching through some of these FAQs that I've been wanting to ask you throughout this sort of segment of our time. But I'm also attempting to manage feline animals here at the same in the same instance, and so pardon my slight distractions on the occasion for those who are going to be watching on video. We'll give Lulu the shout out she needs when she needs it. Um, Jayson, how does all of this come into reflection? I'm sensing such an inherent value in team workplace dynamics, in team communication dynamics. The last thing you just mentioned, I loved, like in particular, not the one where you highlight the translator and that sort of dual role, which I think is just as fantastic. I can think of several different team activities that I've had where it's like that's the exact nature of our operating. Like just, hey, this is way better synchronously communicated than asynchronously communicated. I think in today's world of remote work, it is so important to know the difference of when it's valuable to have that type of one-on-one synchronous communication time. You can stop eating that, thank you. Um, but needless to say, how have you seen teams take a step back and look at all of this into perspective? How have you seen them take away from these experiences?
Yeah. So, one of the most major things is that when people are given a forum to be able to speak up, share what it is that they found, or share what it is or their experience, regardless of level, it makes the group better. In a variety of ways. On the one hand, it could be that that person's contribution very directly moves the needle forward and is able to help people progress towards the goal. That's an obvious gimme, and that could occur at any level of the organization. So what escape rooms are able to provide are, again, that title transcending opportunity for people to actively collaborate together without the fear of seniority or bureaucracy or like up and down the chain communication. Everyone's at the same level. But what if the piece of information that's communicated isn't helpful, or perhaps was a backtracking component, or perhaps like had already been explored but by a person who had gone down that path already? Well, there's value in that as well, because now a person who may not have specific experience in digital marketing techniques, or experience in sales calls, or experience in like the specific nuances of data entry and so on and so forth, then a person who has gone down the path already can say, well, hold on, like we've done this already. we've determined that that's not, here's why the block exists, or we've tried down that path and we've discovered that it's not the right path. Well, then there's learning that happens as well. And so in both circumstances, the opportunity for someone to speak up about what their knowledge and perspective is helpful, either to help move the team forward or to help get the team on the same page and elevate that other person's understanding, or at the very least, to engage in a dialogue, conversation, and provide a training opportunity. Another component is, again, with time management. It's this element of, all right, if we want to accomplish a series of goals, which may have an unknown number of puzzles along the way, we need to make sure that we're working together, that we're working with a degree of urgency, that we are actively collaborating with each other, sensing where do people need support or backup, when is it appropriate to just get a change of perspective and move on to something else while pulling someone in. All of those different aspects and varieties of ways to get to the completion of an overall project come into play. And so when people reflect on the escape room experience, the remembrance of the clock kind of brings back the sense of, oh yes, like projects with deadlines have a specific kind of urgency. And then I think the last one is just, again, knowing when it's time to ask for help, and this comfort of being able to ask for the clue. They're within an organization. While yes, there are people that are brought on with specific skill sets, knowledge bases, networks, resources that are expected to really make those shine in and of themselves. Most of the time, businesses do not have silo working experiences in the true silo matter, and the opportunity to raise your hand and say, "Hey, has anyone seen this before? Hey, does anyone have a tool or a resource that can help with this?" Or, hey, like, I just need more hands to be able to help out, to be able to get this piece done, becomes really important in team dynamics. And so people have felt more comfortable with asking for help, because asking for help might not be a well-exercised muscle in people's work experiences, and actively asking for help within the escape room provides for a safe space to say, hey, I don't know the answer. I need the right perspective shift to help get to where we need. And people have expressed, hey, I've learned how to ask for help as a result.
Jason, I can't wait to see the team take their shot at this. I Everything that you've brought up to this point with regards to communication management, knowledge management, the team dynamics, the asynchronous versus synchronous communication styling, and just overall how to project and task manage in a space that you've never project or task managed before. I I'm going to do this thing where I kind of speak to what I think WellAware really loves to tie its philosophy down on. Um, it's awareness management, right? And part of awareness management includes just even knowing what there is to be aware of
Mhm.
within the meta structure behind your team and how you operate, all the way to what's the project at hand, what's the definition of done that needs to be defined, what's the deadline to be done that needs to be considered and accounted for with respect to everything that's going on. I cannot wait to see my team take this shot at this. I Man, I'm sort of contemplating whether or not to give them some additional well-aware challenges in regards to their overall exploration of this upcoming task. But in kind, I think our conversation is going to become so much different once we get past that particular experience and we have something to come back and reflect on. And so, with that said, any final thoughts before we sort of part ways for today, and kind of leave everybody who may be listening thinking about, what might happen next? Um, Anything we should kind of, wrap ourselves up on with regards to this conversation?
So I think at the end of the day, um, the escape room provides this wonderful amalgamation of kind of, I've got stuff that I need to do, and it's in a fun environment, or I'm finding fun and joy in the play. And I think while we go into the escape room and other entertainment experiences with that mindset, I welcome and challenge you and all of our listeners here to try to find that in spaces where fun and play might not be expected, like in work. So, yes, there's stuff to do, but try to find ways to engage in joy and in play to help make that a more positive experience and a more motivating experience for yourself and those that you work with. And it'll be pretty magical how just the concept of work and play coexisting can also transcend beyond just the escape room environment. So that's my challenge for everyone.
Thank you, Jason. Again, super grateful for our time today, and I can't wait. Until next time. All right. Yay!
Woohoo!